Hey everyone, Tyler from Turnaround Sports. Today we're going to be talking about the 2023 Ironman Florida race course, some athlete tips in there. Before we get into too many details here, make sure you do read the athlete guide. It's got a lot of little tidbits in there for you before race day. As always, please like, subscribe, share. If you need any coaching advice, please feel free to contact me or any coaching consultations or any coaching for you in the future or someone else. So now let's get into some nitty-gritty details here again on the athlete guide. Here we are scrolling down to page 4 with the event schedule this year. On Wednesday the 1st, we have our first athlete check-in there from noon to 5. There is no check-in on Friday or on race day just for blanketed check-ins. There are athlete briefings at 1 and 3 and Thursday, November 2nd. This is the last day for you to check into the event. No check-in on Friday or race day to check in yourself. AWA priority check-ins end at noon. Athlete briefings happen at 11, 2, 3 for the Spanish athlete briefing, and 6 p.m. for the welcome ceremony. Friday, November 3rd is moving day here. We have mandatory mandatory bike and gear check-in where you will get your timing chip happens at 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. We have the athlete briefing at 11 with the pro panel at noon, Spanish athlete briefing at 1, and one last athlete briefing at 2. Saturday, race day, we have 4:45 to 6:30. That's where the transition is open for you to do some last minute check-ins, make sure everything is rocking and rolling. 6:35 national anthem is happening. 40 we have the pro men start, 45 the women, and at 50 we have the age group rolling start thereafter. 6:30 is when the bike and gear checkout begins. Sunday, November 5th, we have awards ceremony happening at 9 with slot allocation happening immediately thereafter at 9:15. Chances are if you're getting the slot, you're also there for awards. But, if you are there for the roll down and you're there, just plan to be there early. All right. Page 7, athlete check-in. This lists where and when, what to bring, and the steps you need to be doing in there. Your race packet will include your race bib, bike and helmet stickers, swim cap, bike check-in and out ticket, and your athlete wristband, which you will be required to wear for the weekend. Gear bags. The white one is the morning clothes. Blue is the gear bag. Orange is your personal bike needs bag. Red is the run gear bag. Black is your run personal needs. Bike stickers have to cover the bike frame, helmet sticker, bike stem sticker, and 5 extra gear bag stickers. I would also write them on permanent marker on your bags just in case the stickers do come off, which has been known to happen. And that is page 7. Rolling down here to page 9, we have pre-race info like physical addresses, personal safety, pre-race swim advisement. You will be able to swim. It is the ocean, but there is no lifeguards on duty. There is not going to be a pre-race swim at this event, but again, you can do so at your own discretion there. Make sure you're swimming with a buddy or with a bright swim cap so everybody knows where you are in the water. Mandatory bike and gear check-in. This happens on Friday, November 3rd from 9 to 3 p.m. You will pick up your timing chip at the bike check-in. Gear bags breakdown happens on page 10. Race day info. Page 12, body marking is not needed here. Aid stations on the bike are every 15 miles, and on the run, they're going to be happening about every mile apart. They have the typical fixins here. So if you've raced another event early in this season, it is pretty much the similar there. Again, timing chip, you will pick it up at your bike check-in the day before the race. Race day info, things like wetsuit temperature and bike and run cutoff times are also listed there, page 14. Now post-race info when you are checking out your bike, celebration day, all that good stuff. They have links here for your timing results if you want to check out there if you have an issue with that. Qualifying for the Ironman World Championships, information is on page 19 again. It happens on Sunday, November 5th. The awards will start at 9 and the roll down that's probably the bad word for it. And the slot allocations will happen at 9:15. If there is a roll down, it will happen then. Just like I said before, I would plan to arrive there a little bit earlier rather than later. You never know what can happen on roll down day. Scrolling down here, we have our first little thing about the race. This is the swim course here. This is a two-loop swim course. Before we can talk about that, we have to talk about the Gulf. We are located, I will highlight it for you so everybody is aware of where we are. We are located right in there on race day, and you can see that the currents are typically doing a clockwise pattern here. Say that typically up here it gets a little bit funky and you can have some head currents going right into the race site, but depending on what weather is happening there, you can also have a counterclockwise current or just a funky crosswind or cross water current there. So I would check in as it gets closer to the event. Typical things that happen on race day, right? Think back to that clockwise pattern that we have. So what usually happens is the water is going this way. So you're never really having um, any break from it. What that also means is this section right here is going to be directly into the current here. So you're going to be constantly swimming, not in opposition of the current, but you're going to be constantly swimming in a way where you don't want to be with the current. It's going to be a little uncomfortable. It's going to be a little slower. If you are swimming out, right, you might have to sight a little bit further off to the other side of the buoy to swim straight on race day. And that's something that you should be practicing or aware of before you get to that race site. Highly encourage you to do a practice swim because that's going to pay huge dividends on race day. I would highly encourage you to do your practice swim as close to your race day time that you are planning to start. It's not going to be as super similar, right? But it will give you a good gauge of what is about to happen. I would also be keeping track of the tide charts, seeing what the Gulf is doing there. If a storm is pushing through, then you know it's going to be a little bit different than this clockwise pattern here, and that's okay. It's been different every single year, so I'm going to go through the typical scenario, and if it's the opposite, just kind of reverse what I'm talking about here. Because it is an out of water start, you're going to go in. You're probably going to have to battle a wave break a little bit to get in. You know, it is the ocean there, so make sure you are practicing your dolphin dives and you are comfortable entering and exiting the water because you're going to be doing it 4 times here. All right. And so that first little section of the race, and I'll highlight it for you so everybody knows, this first little section, even before we get to our buoy, is going to be even more important than in a typical race. Normally the race comes out very, very hot, and that's going to be no different here, but a lot of people don't have that ocean water experience, so when they get to that surf break or that initial swimming, right, it's going to be very jumbled up. Right? If you are a stronger swimmer, you're going to be able to break out of it, but it's going to be very, very busy initially. Coming up to that first buoy and to that second one right through here, this section is going to be, again, very, very frustrating for a lot of athletes, and a lot of athletes get sucked into some mind games that get played here. Again, you're going to have a varying spectrum of swimmers out there. If you are at the pointy end of the race, a professional, then most people are going to be able to handle it. But again, these first 400, 500 meters of the swim are going to be very easy for you to push away from some of those less comfortable people in the water. Highly encourage you to get a warm-up whatever skill level you are out there on race day. After you get through this section right here, it does start to kind of turn into a normal race. But because everyone is very, very frustrated, what they're going to want to do is absolutely hammer this section here. They might be a little bit nervous, swimming past the pier, but in most cases, they haven't started the way they typically do or want to, so they use this as an opportunity to absolutely crush it effort-wise. If you had a decent start and you are kind of vying for a podium spot or a best time out here, I would let other people really put that effort down for you, and I would ride their coattails all the way up until this buoy right here. Those people aren't going to feel the ill effects of it at this point in time, but you should be in a much more comfortable place here. This isn't the time to really throw down. You know, effort is still going to be a little bit higher, but you just got to be very, very careful with your effort. It's very easy to get sucked into some bad things out here. When you do make this turn right here, again, if the current is normal, you're going to be going directly into that water right there. Because of this, a lot of people, you know, they keep ignoring the high effort that they've outputted for this first big stretch right here. as we take this right-hand turn, this is going to be where it kind of overcooks them, and your first real opportunity to pass or catch up to some of the groups that you let slip away is going to be after you make this second turn right through here. And that really lasts all the way back in. And if you are sighting very well, again, what people don't understand is if the current is pushing this way when you swim, you're going to have to be constantly sighting away from the finish in order to swim straight. And that's a little bit different if you are locked in and totally swimming just sighting straight to that finish. You're probably going to get pushed over to that right hand side. There's going to be kayakers, boats, paddleboarders out there preventing you from going majorly off course, but it's going to be a constant zigzag and you're going to be losing a lot of time, which you shouldn't on the way back in. Now, again, this is a 2-loop course, so you do have to do another very unique thing here, and that is run on the beach under the pier, which is really cool, but what that means is you're going to have to get your legs ready to rock and roll during this section right here. Kick your feet a little bit higher rate here. I always tell my athletes to keep their arm speed relatively similar at this point in time. What I see athletes doing in this section right here is constantly overdoing it. They fly out of the water, they absolutely hammer the beach, they dive immediately back in, and they're gassed up for this whole portion of the swim on the second loop. What you want to be doing is going at a good little clip on the beach, but not overdoing it, okay? If your heart rate is very, very high and you can feel that coming out of the water, you probably shouldn't be smashing the beach section. If you're in a manageable spot, sure, you can pick up the pace a little bit, but I wouldn't take this as an opportunity to totally sky your heart rate here. I would use this as a brief opportunity to recover before getting back into the ocean. Now, the last thing that we got to talk about is the second loop, and you need to learn from your mistakes or what you learned on the way out last time, because it's going to be very similar here. The only thing that you're going to run into for our faster swimmers are some slower athletes in this section, believe it or not. Again, don't let that rattle you. Just keep flying by you. If you are a slower athlete, keep doing your thing and use these faster athletes as kind of a gauge, or view them as what to do with their sighting, their stroke patterns, all of that. And once you get a handle on this race course, a lot of athletes make this a very, very challenging one. They're sighting every other stroke. Once you get a feel for the water and you have found your sighting patterns, it turns into just open water swimming with a little bit more waves or less, depending on what happens out there. And that is a really, really common mistake for this course, is just oversighting. It's very, very big problem here, and you'll see a lot of athletes, and you'll fall into this trap if you don't be careful. Once they get to this point in time in the swim, their sighting becomes very excessive. It's like almost every stroke for a while. Maintain your swim patterns, maintain your stroke rates, maintain your breathing patterns there, and it's going to allow you to push back into the water, or back into the beach, a little bit faster. Going back into the beach the second time, again, we didn't talk about it the very first time, but when we do get a little bit closer, you're going to experience some of those tidal waves back and forth. There is going to be periods of time where you do get sucked back out into the ocean in between waves. But if you are riding the waves, you will come out a lot better off. What a lot of people do is really, really fight those middle wave sections. And if it's a strong surf, absolutely. But if it's a gentle one, you really just want to ride those waves in and hold your position in between waves. And that's how you do it for this race course. Now, going back to T1, this is a little bit longer of a T1. You're going to have some sand build up here. If there's any puddles or pools or hoses or anything that you can get a hand on or a foot on, I would highly encourage you to get the sand off of your feet somehow, some way over there, even if you have to pack an extra water bottle in T1. And that is our swim course on page 23 of our athlete guide. We have rules, wetsuit temperature guidelines here. And now we're moving on to the bike. So this is our bike course. It is a 1-loop bike course, and this is a very dangerous or a very fun course. It can be so fast and easy, or it can be very hard and challenging, and that all depends on what our wind is doing putting this or pulling this over from Kona for all of our athletes that were out there. This is our Wind Finder app. I wanted to run through a couple scenarios for you, so follow the particles as we go along with time. And we're just going to jump over a couple of days, and I want to show you why this can be a very challenging or easy bike. So this is going to be where we're swimming. We're biking up here, and there's going to be out and back, another out and back before we go all the way down this stretch of road up to the top and then back in and out, and then we have our run right there. So as we do that, knows that this is the race course here, and this is going to be the stretch of road that we're going to be really hammering here and here as we roll through this. So our wind patterns are going up to down, north to south right now. As we move along on this day, it just keeps doing the same. We're going to switch back to there, and then we're going to go to Wednesday, and you can see if this is our scenario on race day, right? This stretch of road here is going to be a major tailwind section. You're going to be flying here. And if this is the case, if you're going 26, 28 miles an hour and you are not a professional, right? I would just keep cruising along at that speed, get nutrition in, because this stretch of road is going to be over before you know it. A big chunk of the race is going to be over before you know it. But what a lot of people do at a course like this, if this is the wind direction on race day, is they chase that extra 3 miles an hour or 2 miles an hour or whatever it is, right? And they are actively having to overcome the air resistance more than themselves, right? So they're actively working to go so fast, and it's not worth it for a lot of athletes. Be very, very mindful of that. As you go back up to the turnaround, which is going to be out here, and I will go to the bike course really fast again so you can kind of get a good visual up here of what I'm talking about. This is that long straightaway. We go up and down back into town. But as you go up there, right, you might get a bit of a tailwind coming down or a cross tailwind coming back here. So as you take this right-hand turn to go up, you're going to be fighting some wind. And then if this is it, you're going to be having that cross tailwind all the way back down. So you'll still get a bit of a push. But as the weather moves on in the day, it could switch a little bit. And this is kind of a worst-case scenario for a lot of people because this is a tailwind or a headwind all the way back in. Switching over to Thursday, right, and you can see a good little pattern here. This is ideal for race day with this wind pattern right here. Friday, as marked here, again, this is not the best, but you can see the wind is swirling, it's switching before picking up, and this is kind of the worst case scenario for race day. What a lot of athletes are going to experience is that headwind in this case, right? And I'll put on the arrows so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. A lot of people are going to be experiencing a headwind. They'll get a tailwind, but then they have another headwind all the way back in. If you're a later athlete, this is only going to get worse for you, so it's only going to get more challenging. And that is the kind of the name of the game at Florida here. What a lot of people do is a lot of people have to chase this turnaround before the wind shifts, right? And you'll see a lot of professionals kind of pushing the envelope there, and that's why I'm talking about it's not worth it for the majority of us to chase that out and back all the way up here, kind of off screen, for the wind shift on those perfect day scenarios. If this is the case, again, you're going to be having a wind assisted all the way to the turnaround before battling back in, and then the coast is going to be just a battle each way. Last real example here, so you can see as we're scrolling through here, again, that's as typical as it gets, and that's usually what happens on the bike. Before we talk about that, I also wanted to hit up aid stations here. So as we get out of our T1, we will fly out of here. First water stop is up here. Second's over here. Third is in that fast section right here. Fourth is coming back down, or excuse me, fourth is going up. Fifth is coming back down right before mile 80. We also have another aid station right here. I will tell you before we go into the nitty-gritty details of the bike, this aid station is almost always the one that is skipped out on race day, and it's usually one of the more important ones because we have another section of work coming back on the coast. Do not skip that last aid station, even if it's just to top yourself off. It's coming before mile 100, which means we have over 12 miles left to go, and a lot of athletes just kind of cruise through it, sail through it, don't even think about it. And the last one that we had was at mile 80, so you could potentially have a lot of miles without any fuel if you skip this aid station. It's almost always the one that's skipped. Do not, do not, do not do that. Please, 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 please. So this is our best bike split breakdown of the course here, and this is a little bit better breakdown elevation-wise, visually, so you can see it. Out here on race day, you can see that the first little bit here is an uphill drag up to about mile 60. That's going to play a lot of head games with a lot of people, and everyone's going to really want to go fast out of the gate. These out and back sections are going to be a little bit difficult or harder than you want them to be, especially going out. And what a lot of people will kind of hit is this 41, 42 mile barrier out here. And I call it a barrier because if the weather is going the opposite direction, west to east here, this is going to be another just last little derailment possibility for you. So watch the weather patterns. If you do have a tailwind section here, yeah, you can go a little bit harder through this point here. But, if it's swirling, if it's headwind, if there's really not a whole lot of wind, you're going to have to weigh the pros and the cons of going out very hard for the first 43, 44 miles out on race day. If you do have a tailwind here, again, a lot of athletes make this section very, very challenging on themselves, even if they are getting wind assisted. But there have been years here where, and it hasn't happened in a couple of years, but this section can have a headwind. And, we are talking 40, let's call it starting at mile 42 just for easy math, right? 42 all the way to about 62 is, 22 miles. So for my faster athletes, you're going to have about an hour or so of headwind here. So this is a very, very real opportunity for the course to get very slow for you. And a lot of athletes, they came to Florida, they want to put down at Ironman Florida, and I get it. But this is going to be an opportunity for you to put your ego aside. And I say an opportunity because those that do in the headwind scenarios, right, and they race their race here are going to be much more successful usually than the athletes who really, really hammer for this hour. Granted, you are going to have a couple tailwind opportunities here, but you got to be very, very careful when that is the case here. And same thing with our tailwind. You just really don't want to overdo this section right through here. Use this as an opportunity to race your race, reevaluate what's happened up to mile 40, and once you get to mile 65, then you can start to make some other split decisions there. Before we go any further, we only have about 1900 feet of elevation gain here. Once you make this right-hand turn, you're going to steadily climb up to our turnaround point at the very top, turnaround, and now it is a descent past the point where we turned there. Again, depending on what the wind is doing, this is another opportunity for you to blow some serious matches out on the race course. Do not overdo it here. If you are battling a headwind, you are going to want to go into your head protocols, aero position, all of that good stuff. But if you are overdoing it, again, we are at mile 70. Let's call it 72 again for easy math. And then we're going to 82-ish. So it's about a 9-10 mile stretch of road here that you have the potential to really, really hammer in a head crosswind situation, in a cross tailwind situation. Again, you should use this as an opportunity to fuel up, have your speed up, but if you're not one of the front runners, you're going to have to weigh the pros and cons of chasing that extra mile an hour and a half. Is it worth it? Have you checked the weather? Do you know if it's going to shift even to a better or a worse scenario? What has happened for some athletes in the past is they panic and they absolutely fly down this section and the wind shifts again and it's a tailwind again. So they did a lot of work during this section, right? And they're going, let's call it half a mile an hour faster than their competitors here. But they had to use a ton more effort to do so. Just be careful at that section there. And again, watch what the wind is doing on the side of the road. See what's going on with the grass, the trees. If there's any buildings, do they have flags on them? Houses, all of that. As we continue our stretch all the way back into town here, again, wind is going to be a crucial factor. I'm zooming in here for the first time on race day, and this is going to be for that last aid station that we talked about right through there. But also realize this is at mile 80 or 98. We have 14 more miles left of racing, and what a lot of athletes do is they get to this point and they just mentally shut off. So 14 miles, if you're going 20 miles an hour, that's, let's call it 42, 43 minutes if you're going 20 miles an hour. If you're going slower than that, it's going to be even more time. Obviously, if you're going 24, 25 miles an hour, not so much, but you still have over 30 minutes of racing, okay? Do not mentally shut off at this point and realize that when you get here, the wind is going to swirl. I don't care what the weather says. It is going to be swirling here until you get on the coast here, and then it's pretty steady of what it's doing. That is our bike course breakdown. Here's the power breakdown for this athlete doing a 4:30 out there projected. But again, this number could easily balloon up 10 to 15 more minutes depending on if it's a unfavorable wind condition here, and I'll show you what we have mapped out here in a second. And I'm also going to take out elevation for you so you can really see this power. It's pretty steady throughout the day. This is a course where a lot of athletes get trapped into that aero position. So if you are one of those athletes that loves the aero position, make sure that every 5 or 10 minutes you are getting out at least for a couple pedal revolutions, stand up, stretch out, do whatever you got to do, and then you can get back in. But what you don't want to do is get locked into a course like this. All right, so let's go to weather. I promised you that much. Weather here, and look at the arrows. This is going from the east to west, and we are going probably a northeast wind. So that's going from the northeast to the southwest here, and that is the ideal scenario for this course because the wind doesn't pick up until later in the day, and after that point, you've started to make that you hopefully made it to that 42-ish mile area out on course where it is pushing you. So again, that's the race for the corners out on race day. Time analysis, if we are going to go about 5% faster out on race day, I wanted to show you what the major implications are. So 5% faster here, you're looking for this athlete has about a 4.5-minute gain, again, in these favorable conditions. Be very careful when you're doing this. A lot of these stretches on race day, there's not any small real stretch that stands out. A lot of these stretches like this one right here, this segment time is 11.5 minutes. So this one is 13 minutes, and this one is 15 minutes. So a lot of these early sections are traps. Okay, you don't have to go super hard here. If you are going your pace, realize that if you're going 5% faster, it's going to take a lot of effort in these sections to save, right here, 13.5 seconds. All right, you're going to have to do that for 12 minutes. If something happens, you stop pedaling and you just kind of look down, see what's going on, you've already lost 1 or 2 seconds there. So that's a lot of work to only chase some of those seconds here. Lots of other opportunities to get those seconds later on, especially from mile 40 to 50. And again, later on from 70 to 80, that's probably the best bang for the buck, except for mile 100 to 110, where a lot of athletes are falling asleep at the wheel. Get ready for T2. And that is our bike breakdown. Let's go back to our athlete guide. Again, you can see here the elevation that they have listed here, very similar to what we had out there. Page 29, we have the bike course rules. The bike course drafting zone is 12 meters long or 6 bike lengths. You have 25 seconds to pass and you have 25 seconds to vacate that draft zone. Otherwise, you will get a violation. Again, page 30, they have more rules here. They also list the bike to run transition. After the bike, you will dismount and rack your bike. You may leave your shoes and bike gear on or by your bike. You will then head out onto the run course. So that's pretty cool here on Ironman Florida race day. Scrolling down here for the run course. This is a 2-loop run course, so very similar to the swim. Again, it is 2 loops. Eagle-eyed viewers will see this is the start/finish line over here. This is the turnaround, so what's going to happen is you're going to run all the way out. You're going to come back where you can actually see the finish line, turn around again, and you will do the same thing out and back. This is our run course right here, 300 feet of elevation gain. They have it listed, if we scroll down here, at 254, so this is pretty close. And you can see this is actually a bit better of a representation without the zoom in for race day. So this is going to be our course, and I want you to divide this up into a couple different sections here. First big section that we are going to talk about is the first 2.5, 3 miles out on course. This section, very, very common for athletes to get out of T2 and fly at Ironman Florida. Don't do that. If you are starting your run early afternoon, temperatures are have the capability to be high. It depends what happens with the weather. Not a lot of shade cover at this course. There might be a couple of trees, a couple of buildings with some minuscule shade coverage if it's a sunny day, and that will help you for a little bit, but you're going to be running out of it for sure. What you want to be doing in this section is getting your run legs back, getting your form ready, evaluating your nutrition, all that good stuff here, and getting on down the road according to your pace. Different athletes are going to go out differently, but that's going to be what most people's plans should be. Next big section from mile 3-ish to mile, let's call it 6, 7. Right through here, steady downhill gradients with some slight uphills mixed in, and again, those uphills aren't going to last for very long. What you should be doing at this point in time is finding your marathon pace and evaluating some issues, if any, that you have. If you're feeling great, I really wouldn't push it yet. Flatter courses are, notoriously difficult for a lot of athletes here. So again, be very, very careful when you're doing something like this. All right. Keep going down your checklists, keep running through it. I wouldn't be worried about what other people are doing yet. I would be doing what you should be doing up until this point in the race. Building back up to that turnaround here. Excuse me, this is the turnaround point. But coming back into town during this section right through here, again, we're going to do the opposite of what we just did, and we are going to do a steady uphill grade back up. This is going to be where you can find out about your legs if there is another issue that you have on these slight uphills. Are you experiencing any slight cramping or some issues? Are you having to shorten your stride? What's going on? Those aren't things that you should ignore. You should be paying attention to them and seeing how can I fix those? What have I not done in the last X time? And how can I fix it? If you've gone out too fast, that's an easy solution. Slow down. And again, really, really hammer out your pace and figure out what is going on. And if you need to do anything, do it. This is going to be our last big stretch here. Again, we could turn this whole thing into another big section out here before we do turn around again. So we are going to hit the turnaround to start our second loop, and we are going back out to that far turnaround, which is right at, I scrolled too far, which is right through here. This stretch of road from here, turn. This stretch of road is usually the hardest for a lot of athletes. And it's just mental out here because the elevation is clearly not a contributing factor to a lot of athletes' failures out here. It's a lot of pacing, nutritional issues, and also what happened on the bike that contribute to this. So if you can fix a lot of those issues, these sections are going to be a lot easier. And going back in, we're going to talk about a strategy that I haven't talked about yet, and that is kind of dividing this course up. I would find some landmarks for you for a halfway point, or you can do from this turnaround to the pier. Pier to pier is a popular one, and then pier to turnaround. So you can have 4 different sections just to kind of keep you mentally stimulated on each lap. And that can serve as a great motivator for you to help get down the road. So you can find a segment or a section that you're going to be motivated to hit on race day and just keep going out there. Divide the course up and it will get you home a lot faster, a lot faster. All I have to do is get to that section, then I got quadrant 4. All I got to do is get to that section, and then I'm done with the race. Easy, easy, easy. All right, so I would actually encourage you to go through the run course beforehand, not run it, but maybe ride your bike on it or just get in a car, drive on it, and evaluate it and see if you can have any stepping stones to your race finish. And they can even be different from the first lap to the second lap, okay? And last big thing on our run course, it is going to be exposed to the weather out there. Just be careful if it is hot, if it's a hotter day, if it's a windier day, make sure you take the appropriate accommodations for success out there. And that's Ironman Florida 2023 in a nutshell. Again, if you have any Coaching questions, please reach out if you want any consults before the race or afterwards. Let me know. Happy to kind of do a deep data dive or give you some suggestions leading up to our race here. And if you want any coaching afterwards or beforehand, let me know as well. Good luck to all of our 2023 athletes and everybody else.